Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Father-Son Packers podcast, your source for Packers news, notes, and analysis. My name is Tommy. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, my dad, Matt. Dad, how you doing?
Doing well. You know, it's we're recording this on Friday night, so it was a good night for Wisconsin sports.
Yes, the Bucks edge out a win against the Knicks in the first game of the in-season tournament, which is exciting. Had to hold our breath there a little bit at the end, but they pulled it out in the end, thankfully. We are here today to talk to you a little bit about the upcoming Packers game, however, against the Los Angeles Rams coming this Sunday. Here to preview everything about it. But before we get into that, just wanted to pitch a couple of things. If you like what you hear here today, come give us a follow on Twitter at FatherSonPacker. We tweet out when we have any statistics that we find interesting. We tweet out when we have new episodes coming out. We tweet out articles we find interesting, pieces of Packers news, interesting videos, etc., etc. One-stop shopping for everything Titletown. And then come subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We even put all our episodes out on YouTube as well, so you can check them out there. If you subscribe to us there, it would really help our numbers, so we would appreciate it. But Dad, let's get into it. Let's start talking about this game with the Rams coming up. I know with the way Packers football has been going the last 4 games, it's hard to get excited, but we're going to do it anyways. Packers-Rams. Packers are favored.
How about we could get
somehow.
excited, but just not optimistic?
That's fair. I guess we can get. The thing is, it's been such a tough watch the last 4 weeks, but I'm gonna get excited and get my heart hurt again because that's what we do. But before we get into any of the actual stuff surrounding the game, let's start with the injury report, Dad. This is Friday, so we have the official injury report as we speak for the Packers. Only 2 players on the injury report with statuses, and that is Rudy Ford, who is questionable after being a limited participant on Thursday but did not practice on Friday. And then Quay Walker is also questionable. He practiced Wednesday and Thursday but then popped up with a tight groin on Friday, so he did not participate in practice on Friday. Matt LaFleur said he kind of came in feeling tight, per Rob Domofsky on Twitter. And then Matt LaFleur actually also said they've recently done a deep dive into their abundance of soft tissue injuries, per Rob Domofsky on Twitter, which, better late than never, I guess. And then the other thing is that
we're not going to have enough bodies to finish the season.
I know, right?
Everybody's going to be like, with a wrapped up.
Well, speaking of bodies to finish the season, the safety position is looking extra questionable this week because if Ford is out, we could be down to Levitt and Owens at safety, which is not great. On the Rams side...
Oh, don't forget AJJ.
It's true. That's true. But it looks like they want to go Owens and Levitt because that's what they did the last time they were down to.
Well, but they got to have a backup.
That's true. That's true. But I'm talking about just who's going to end up starting if Ford can't go. It seems like it's going to be Owens and Levitt.
I thought you meant they're only going to have 2 of those subs.
No.
But who knows? Maybe they will anyway.
Going to the Rams.
Find out what the call-ups are tomorrow.
Going to the Rams side, though.
Yes.
They have 7 players with designations. The first is Rob Havenstein is questionable. He's their right tackle, their starting right tackle. He did not participate in practice either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday with a calf injury, and he actually missed last game as well. So that's something to keep an eye on, and I would kind of be surprised if he did play, but he is questionable.
It seems like he's on the wrong side of questionable, but I guess not all the way to doubtful.
Yep. And then Kobe Durant with a shoulder injury is questionable, defensive back. He was limited each day this week. Laryl Murchison, defensive tackle, with a knee injury, was limited all week. He is also questionable. Puka Nacua, you might have heard of him, with a knee injury, was limited all week and is questionable. Matthew Stafford, that's the big one that we'll talk about in a second, with a right thumb, has not practiced at all this week, is questionable, surprisingly, not out, and did have to leave their last game against the Cowboys. And then Ernest Jones, their linebacker, and Hunter Long, their tight end, are going to be out in this game. The big one here, Dad, is Stafford's thumb injury, which is generally expected that he's not going to play in this game. I know he is questionable, but I think it would be a bigger surprise if he did, which kind of is reflected by the line with the Packers being favored. But that would mean that Brett Rippon would be starting, which, would definitely be an advantage for the Packers. And that's kind of the big thing coming into this game. Obviously, Puka being questionable and their right tackle being questionable are big, but the biggest is always the quarterback.
Yeah, and if it's Rippon and they don't have their starting tackle, that's rough for them. Is it rough enough for us to put it all together and get a win?
That's a very different question.
They're trying to give us some hope. Just when I think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Yep, they're trying to pull us back in this one because with all these injuries and with Rippon starting presumably at quarterback. We're getting into let's get into just the meat of the game preview, unless you had anything you wanted to add on the injury front.
It's just unusual. It at least seems unusual that our opponent has a worse injury report than we do.
I know. It's such a change of pace. It's kind of crazy.
Did you did I hold this up to a mirror? What's going on here?
Yeah, it doesn't sound right, huh? We're in upside down land. But for the game, kind of reflective of the injury report, the Packers are actually favored by 3 in this one, with an over-under line of 39, so an implied score of Green Bay 21, Rams 18. Not exactly expected to be a very high-flying game. Not really at all, but it's okay. None of the Packers games really so far have been, and when they have been, it hasn't really been going our way.
I don't think either team this week is going to be mistaken for the Dolphins.
No, not at all. At least not on offense. Forecast for about 48 and cloudy at kickoff for this game. Game time is noon Central. And don't forget about daylight saving time ending Saturday night. So, even if you do, you'll be an hour early, but you'll be an hour early.
If you forget, you'll have a little bit more tailgating time. It's not. It could be worse.
At least there's that. But yeah, so keep an eye on that one. But Dad, let's move into the meat of our game preview. And let's start with our section, Keeping Up with the Joneses. And I'm not just talking about Aaron and Caleb. Although, both of them have not really been playing that much. So, but the Rams recently, let's just give a little update with them. They are 3-5 with 3 losses in their last 4 games. So they're on a bit of a skid as well. Averaging 21.9 points per game on offense after only 18.1 last year. And giving up 23 points per game on defense after 22.6 last year. On offense by DVOA, they are 10th overall. For reference, Green Bay is 21st. 15th in passing and 6th in rushing to Green Bay's 14th and 28th, respectively, for reference. On defense by DVOA, they have struggled a decent amount more, however. They are 23rd overall. Green Bay is 28th, so, we've been struggling too. They're 22nd against the pass and 26th against the run to Green Bay's 27th and 24th, respectively. So, Dad, Rams kind of started the season pretty well, I would say, but it's been a bit of a skid since then, and with Stafford's injury, it's kind of hitting the rocks a little bit for them, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, because the offense has been the strength of the team so far this year, and the defense has not. And so I think it's a big difference losing Stafford for them to how this offense is going to perform. And so if the offense falls down to the level of their defense, that's not good for them.
Anything
I
can
was
happen.
Curious, and I put it like some of these comparisons last year because it felt like, they struggled last year. And how does this year compare to last year? And about the same on defense, better on offense.
Yeah, and Stafford's had a really nice year so far for them. It's kind of a shame that he's had trouble staying healthy the past couple of years. But yeah, so anything else you want to say about the Rams in general, or should we move on to talking about them in a very nice way? This is your favorite section, Hey Now Play Nice, where we kind of say...
You think I'm such a hater.
You are a hater. But this is the section where we say some nice things about the opponent, kind of, gas them up a little bit, give them some compliments before we bring them back down to earth in the second half. But Dad, what nice things do you have to say about the Rams in this one?
I picked just a wide receiver duo of Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. Are both really good. Right now, this year, Nacua is 3rd in the league with 795 receiving yards, and he's a rookie. He's 2nd in targets, only to Stephon Diggs. He's 4th in first downs converted, so this is all among receivers, and he's 7th in the league in PFF receiving grade. Meanwhile, Kupp, he only won the receiving triple crown just 2 years ago. He was hurt at the beginning of the year. Then he had that hamstring injury. They weren't sure about it. There's this. He traveled to get looked at. Was going to miss the whole year. But he's back, and he's not up to that level yet. But he's had 200-yard receiving games already this year, and he's currently 16th in the league in PFF receiving grade. And both are in the top 25 in yards after catch per reception at over 5 yards after catch per reception. So that's worrisome. I also feel like it doesn't seem to matter who they throw in there in the backfield that they're getting decent running back production on offense. Even though
the Sean McVay effect.
Even though the run blocking is not all that good. So they're 6th by DVOA in rushing offense. Well, by DVOA, they're 8th in adjusted line yards. So those seem to square up. But in PFF, they're 4th in rushing grade, despite their run blocking grade being 12th. And then by ESPN, their run block win rate is 11th. But overall, their run game has been good. once again, it's kind of like, the Rams or the Niners, doesn't matter. Throw somebody in the backfield.
And somehow
they're going to do well.
Somehow we have coaching from the same tree, and we can't get that same effect. I don't understand it. It doesn't. Yeah. It's somehow these other teams with the same system can just bring rushing production out of nowhere, and the Packers can't buy a yard on offense running the football. Doesn't make sense.
And if you play fantasy football, it's like, give me one of those Niners or Rams running backs. Doesn't matter who they are.
Exactly. Doesn't seem to matter ever. They could trot out anyone out there, but it is what it is. For me, the positive that I had, or is there anything else you want to say about the Rams?
No, those are my two things.
For me, the positive that I have is, they've gotten some really nice contributions from rookie in general. Everyone knows about Puka Nacua, obviously, and you already detailed how well he's been playing. But edge Byron Young, third-round pick this year, number 0 if you're looking for him on the screen, is top 20 in the league amongst edges in total pressures. And then he's 13th in the league in pressures on true pass sets amongst edges. So he's having a really nice year. He was someone that I think the Packers took a look at in the pre-draft process, if I remember correctly. And then Steve Avila, second-round pick this year, has started every game for them at left guard. He hasn't been amazing, but he's had some nice games, and he's had some down games. I think he struggled last week against Dallas a little bit, but Dallas's pass rush is pretty formidable. And he's had some good games otherwise, so there is that. But yeah, they're also a very young team. They're one of the youngest teams in the NFL, just like the Packers. But they're getting some pretty immediate contributions from some of these young rookies, which I think is a testament to Sean McVay and how he prepares his team. But yeah, those are the play nice sections for this Rams team. They're a very solid team. I think they're better than people expected them to be, although they have kind of hit a skid a little bit here in this portion of their schedule. But Dad, anything else you want to say nice about the Rams, or should we talk about some things that we might be nervous about specifically with how they match up against the Packers?
Yeah, so some of that will actually be the nice for the Rams, because they're not. I actually didn't pick the things that are necessarily as closely related to at least some of what I had for their strengths. So here's what makes me Aaron Donald versus our interior pass blocking, run blocking, whatever you want to call.
Yeah.
So, so basically mostly versus Josh Myers and John Runyon. Will they try to keep Donald away from Jenkins after the experience a couple years ago where Jenkins kind of had his number? But I don't think that's going to be the case. But so Donald is still going strong. What is it, like his 10th year in the league now? With the third best pass rush win rate for D linemen by ESPN, and the second best pass rush grade by PFF for defensive linemen. So his pass rushing is still his run defense grades have dropped a little bit in the last couple of years versus what they were before. Kind of interesting about thinking about how our pass protection against him inside is going to work. Runyon and Myers, ESPN has them as the number 10 and number 11 pass blocking interior offensive linemen by pass block win rate.
I do feel like Myers
below.
I was going to say, I do feel like Myers has been pretty decent pass blocking this year. It's just he'll whiff on run blocks, like
the run blocking is just, I don't know why. Does he get like over his skis, as it were, when trying to drive upfield and loses balance?
I think that's 100%.
As opposed to just staying, he stays over his toes when he's in pass blocking and he doesn't have the right balance when he's run blocking. That's one possible explanation. But PFF has a very different story for the two of them. They have Myers as below average in true pass sets and Runyon right on average, as opposed to being like top 10, borderline top 10. So what's going to go on there is, anytime you go against a guy like Aaron Donald, you'd be worried about what he's going to do to your offense. And then my second thing is, what is Green Bay's run defense? What is it? They just had their best run D grade of the season by PFF, an excellent 85 against Minnesota. Now, Minnesota's run game has been terrible all year.
Minnesota can't run the football is really what's happening there. Because if they're averaging 2 yards a carry versus us, I can't imagine what they're doing against some of these other teams.
They probably had that game last week circled as a get-right game for their run game. I mean, it worked. Like, other teams have done it. But the Rams' run offense is good by most metrics. So you mentioned some of it already. So will an improvement is this improvement that we've seen from Green Bay on run D, will it continue, or was it a mirage? And just what I mentioned before, the Rams average 4. It cannot be touched or felt or smelled or any way measured.
I'm not optimistic.
So my worry
about
is
the Packers' run defense. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah, and the Rams are 11th as a team in yards before contact per attempt, per Pro Football Reference. And if the Packers fall behind the Rams, maybe the Rams will just never throw the ball again.
That's the thing. Because the way the Packers have started some of these games, I don't believe they're going to have a lead coming into half. And if Brett Rippon doesn't have to throw, then
if you were the Rams and you had a touchdown lead, would you ever let Brett Rippon drop back again?
If you were the Rams and you weren't trailing, and it wasn't the fourth quarter, unless you're trailing in the fourth quarter, I don't see why, if you're the Rams, why you would even really consider passing that heavily. Obviously you have to pass a little bit, but they should just be able to run the rock.
This could be an 8 pass attempt game.
Yeah. I wouldn't blame them either, especially if it's working, which is why I think the Packers need to sell out a little bit to stop the run. But anyway,
they should be, if they're going light boxes on
gonna drive me crazy.
3rd and 5 with Brett freaking Rippon trying to throw.
It's going to drive me crazy.
We have concerns about our pass defense too. Why don't you take it away?
I was going to say, I do have concerns about the pass defense. If Matthew Stafford was playing in this game, I think it would be a much bigger deal. But at the same time, I am nervous about our secondary against their receivers. Packers potentially are going to be starting a secondary of Jair, Dallin Levitt, Jonathan Owens, Keyshawn Nixon, and Carrington Valentine. And Jair's clearly...
Let's just mention about, Jair is Jair without a back.
Exactly. Jair's back is still messed up, as seen in the previous game against the Vikings. He did not look himself. He hasn't really been practicing in full. I know he's not on the injury report, but I don't believe he's 100%. He just can't move the same out there with his back injury right now. If he can't go, it'd be Corey Ballantyne opposite Valentine, which, if Jair can't go, I think this is easily the worst secondary in the league. I don't think it's close. You're starting undrafted, 7th rounder, special teamer, and another guy who's just bounced around the league. So it's not
no
good.
Jair and no Ford.
Yeah.
Woof.
And the fact that we're wow, Ford's not going to play, and that's concerning. That's how bad it already is. And so we're going down a level from that. We're going down a level from our best safety and probably our second best defensive back is a career special teamer who had never started at safety until this year. He's playing well. I'm not going to tell you he's not. Rudy Ford's playing quite well. Way better than anyone should have reasonably expected. But the fact that we're the backups are even worse than that. It's bad. It's not good. And I think they probably go Levitt and Owens. I don't understand why you wouldn't give Anthony Johnson a shot, because the whole thing this season is development. It's the whole reason you're probably playing Walker over Nyman at points this season, is you want to develop players for next year. I don't see what Levitt or Owens are giving you out there that Johnson couldn't. I'm sorry. They're just not very good at safety. And honestly, in general, I'm sorry, but they're just not that good. I would love to see Johnson. I don't understand why you wouldn't, but the last time that they didn't have Ford and Savage, they did go Owens and Levitt. So there's that. Meanwhile, what they'll be contending with, like you already talked about, is a very solid receiver room. Since Kupp's return, the trio of Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, and Tutu Atwell have a median of 11.5 receptions for 201 yards between them over the last 4 games. They struggled a lot against Dallas last week. I think they only totaled 80 yards, but they dominated the other 3 matchups. And they also have a very high usage with a median of 21 targets per game amongst them. Now, obviously, all of that with the caveat that they're going to have Brett Rippon throwing on the ball instead of Matthew Stafford. And that might be the only thing.
At least we expect so anyway.
Yes. But be more worried than I am even right now if Stafford plays, because even with Brett Rippon throwing on the ball, I'm concerned. I have a lot of concerns about those 3 going against the projected defensive lineup for the Packers. That's the main thing that I am nervous about, though, in this game. But Dad, do you have anything else you're nervous about, or do you want to start, maybe giving ourselves some optimism and some hopefully not false hope?
Let's see. What else am I nervous about? I'm nervous about our secondary. I'm nervous about our run defense. I'm nervous about our run offense. I'm nervous about our pass protection. I'm nervous about our deep passing. Did I leave anything out?
Here's the thing. are we really nervous about all of that? Because nervous kind of implies a sense of uncertainty. I'm not entirely uncertain.
You are right. Nervous is maybe the wrong emotion.
Yeah.
Nervous is when you think you have a chance, but you're worried you might not. You're worried it might not come to fruition, as opposed to having just gloom and doom.
Yeah, nervous might not be the right word because it implies.
Maybe we need to change this section.
Yeah, things that
I'm
will
nervous
probably.
about. I have a sense of impending doom about
things that I am shorting on the Packers. Things that I know are not going to go well. But yeah, so. We're all having fun here. It's such a great time to be watching the Packers. But Dad,
if we didn't have Gallus humor, we wouldn't have any humor at all.
Yep. Let's move on though to some exploitable weaknesses of the Rams. And Dad, I'll throw it over to you. What are some things that the Rams don't do well that the Packers could maybe try and take advantage of if they want to get a leg up in this game?
Okay, so the Rams' pass blocking is subpar by several metrics. They give up the 14th most sacks per game, so kind of middle of the pack, and they're 17th by DVOA in adjusted sack rate. But they're also 27th by ESPN's pass block win rate and 30th in PFF's pass blocking grade. I think one of the things that's covered up a little bit of their pass blocking deficiencies is that Stafford is only pressured at the 18th highest rate by PFF. But I think likely in part because he has the third fastest time to throw at 2.92 seconds in the league. Now Stafford, when he's playing, he's just middle of the pack in terms of yards per attempt under pressure, 20th. That's a little like kind of bottom third actually, but he's 7th in yards per attempt when kept clean, and that changes from his PFF passing grade is 4th in the league when he's kept clean, and then drops to 19th in the league when he's under pressure. Goes from 91 to 52. So if you get pressure on Stafford or the Rams in general, it has effects. But Rippon is a massive downgrade from Stafford.
That's a real hot take you got right there.
Yeah, well, so let's just see how bad it gets for them if we can get any pressure. So in 2020, Rippon's PFF grade under pressure, it's 34.7. And in 2022, it's 36.4. Now, it does look like Rippon gets rid of the ball quickly, like Stafford, but the results are bad. Under pressure, he's got 0 in his career, 0 TDs and 4 interceptions. With a clean pocket, he still has 4 interceptions, but he's got 4 touchdowns.
Not bad.
So that's a big improvement. And his yards per attempt go down from 6.3 when clean to 4.3 under pressure. For comparison, Stafford splits are 8.1 when kept clean and 6 yards per attempt when pressured. So compare that. His yards per attempt when under pressure are almost as high as Rippon's when he's not under pressure. So
not great, Bob.
So that I think their pass blocking is actually not that great, and Rippon has a history of being bad under pressure.
Yeah, and my thing that I think is an exploitable weakness kind of ties right into, if they can get Bray Rippon under pressure. And the thing that I was going to focus on was backup right tackle, assuming Havenstein can't go again. I know he is questionable, but he had not practiced at all this week, and he didn't play last week either. Last week, it was Joe Noteboom playing for the injured Havenstein, and he gave up 4 pressures and a sack at right tackle. Usually he is a guard, but he has been their backup right tackle. So he played and gave up 4 pressures and a sack in this last game, and then he played right tackle once before he had to fill in 2021, and he gave up 3 pressures, a hit, and a sack. So for those of you keeping score at home, he's averaging 3.5 pressures allowed, a sack allowed, and about a half a hit allowed. So he's letting people get through on that right side. You'd imagine they're going to give him some help over there at tight end, with Higbee probably chipping a lot and maybe keeping the running back in to help. But I think Gary should be licking his lips on that right tackle side and should be able to cause a lot of problems, I think.
It's like, meme of the guy standing behind the tree, rubbing his hands together.
His hands together. He's excited, yes. But I think that's the biggest exploitable weakness is that backup right tackle really struggled against Dallas last week, and he's not a tackle. Like, they're playing a guard at tackle. You should be able to smoke him, assuming Havenstein is not playing. I do think it would be funny, though, if after this entire preview, where we're assuming Havenstein's not playing and we're assuming Stafford's not playing, that they just both end up playing in this game and just throw everything out. It doesn't even matter. We get smoked by 20. But hey, optimistic view. Just take a rest. Just take the game off.
You need to think need to think long term, big pictures.
Exactly. You can
Stafford
probably
and
have it's only a 3-point spread with the Packers at home, and they're playing Brett Rippon. I didn't even think about that. We're only favored by 3 against probably Brett Rippon in Lambeau in November.
Right. So it's like we're even with Brett Rippon on a neutral field.
That's horrifying. That's so bad.
That's our level of play right now. We're the equivalent of Brett Rippon on a neutral field.
That's so awful. Oh my God. And they're not wrong. That's the thing. They're not wrong. That's how bad we've
talked about
been.
this after last game. It's like, do we feel like really confident that we are for sure going to win any game left on this slate?
It's hard to be confident after the way you've seen them play the last 3 weeks. It's not just like I think I was either the last podcast or when we were talking afterwards. It was like they're not the worst offense in the league. They're not the worst defense in the league, but somehow they find a way to lose these stupid games week after week, and it's just so taxing on the psyche.
It's just that eventually somebody is going to make a mistake.
Yeah, not
and
eventually.
It's everywhere.
You're saying you're saying eventually, like we have to
okay,
wait.
Eventually,
they were in the wrong routes.
Sounds like a long time.
They were in the wrong routes on the third play of the game. Like they're out there not running the routes on an RPO on the third play of the game. Don't say eventually.
They didn't know what the play was. It's too bad. Yeah, it's too bad that was in the scripted part of the game plan where they knew it, where they'd worked on it all week.
Yeah, it's crazy. But I do think
so
they
at
are
some
young.
point,
They are
everybody's
going to
learn what they're supposed to do at the same point. It's just like, it just takes until week 10 or 11 or 9, where all of a sudden everybody has figured out the playbook.
It's not impossible. I think
it's not for lack of. I think you agree with me that it's not for lack of physical ability.
For the most part, I think the line there's a lack of physical ability there. Like, Runyon is not the quickest. Myers has not been the quickest, especially like getting off his spot, and hasn't always been the strongest. When they have to play Newman, I think there's a clear physical limitation there.
I'm sure hoping we don't end up with Newman versus Darnold.
You mean Donald?
Donald.
Honestly, Darnold might be able to slip by him. I'm not going to lie. But yeah, and then Walker's fine, but I think there's like clear physical limitations there. I see what you're saying, but I think there are places on this roster where there is a lack of the physical talent at times. But yeah, so for the most part, there are some exploitable weaknesses for the Rams. Let's get back on track here. But Dad, let's talk about what we hope the Packers do in terms of approach in this game. What are you feeling for in this game?
So I really hope the Packers completely change their identity right now, but to get off to a fast start. Right now they're dead last in first half points per game at 4.1. And the Rams are I know, on average.
And they've been lucky to get some of those points, to be honest.
Yeah, they had to get rescued for 3 of them.
Yeah, at least.
Just in the last game.
Yes, they had to get rescued.
Where they had to miss, and they got a second chance at it.
Yep.
And then the Rams are 19th in the league with 11 points per first half. Not great, but still, that's a touchdown lead. It would be a touchdown lead at halftime. So I think I want to see them get more aggressive. I think one of the things the doldrums, do something to get the players in a more aggressive mindset instead of reactive. So pressure Rippon with blitzes, extra rushers, etc. He's shown that he'll make mistakes under pressure. And go up tempo on offense from the beginning of the game. Don't wait until you're behind where, okay, now we'll go up tempo, now we'll go no huddle, and now we look like a competent offense. But we wait until we're behind 2 touchdowns. So I'd like to see them actually try an opening drive with up tempo and maybe even some no huddle. They need to have a spark so they don't start off passive all the time. It's not even, somebody been asking for like a scheme difference. I want an attitude difference.
They seem like, they seem like they don't. I don't know what they practice when they practice the opening script. Like I'm not sure what's going on there.
I didn't think about this as much, but the more the week has gone by, the more damning I think Zach Tom's comments were of the whole offense.
We're not ready to play.
Yeah,
he said of the whole team, we're not ready to play.
Right. Well, yeah, it says the whole team. It's like, holy crap, whose job is that? who should be getting the team ready to play?
Yeah, I mean, and it's easy to see. They're coming out flat.
Anybody with eyes
can
see they're not ready to play at the beginning of the game. It's like one mistake after another.
We didn't need Zach Tom to tell us that. Like, we could see it on the field. They're not ready to play every single week, and it's getting worse every week. Is the thing. We keep waiting for them to bounce back. We keep waiting for them to play with like more fire. You thought last week, coming off back-to-back really tough losses and playing a division rival at home, you thought they'd get up for that game. They didn't get up for that game at all. Like, it's bad. It's bad. And what I hope the Packers do in this game is just have an aggressive defensive game plan. If you don't get pressure, there's no way anyone on this back end is sticking with these receivers for the Rams. I'm sorry, but they don't have the horses back there. If Rippon's allowed to sit back there and hold the ball, they're never going to get a stop. And maybe Rippon doesn't even throw it much this game, but I can't bear to watch them drop 9 in coverage again and still not cover guys wide open in the middle of the field like they did with Hawkinson last week. Like, they're rushing 2 guys, dropping 9, doing whatever they can to cover that space, and he's still wide open. And, like, it's just, I would rather send 9 than drop 9, to be honest. Because I feel like at
send
that
9
point,
and leave 2.
Am I wrong?
In coverage?
Wouldn't you, I obviously am being facetious, but like maybe I'm not, because dropping 9, there's you're not doing anything. You're not covering anyone. It's just, you're just standing around back there. It's not very fun right now. But yeah, a more aggressive game plan. We talked about how Rippon has struggled under pressure. Rippon isn't that good to begin with. Obviously, it's going to come back to bite me. You can clip that sound if you would like, but
he's completed his first 15 passes.
Yeah, I know, right? It's going to be like all wide open over the middle, especially if Quay can't play. McDuffie hasn't been terrible, but yeah. Anything else that you hope the Packers do in this game, Dad, or do you want to move? There was one thing I was actually initially typing. I think I was looking up these stats, and I was initially going to be like, I want them to run more, like run the ball more, because Adam Stenavich, they asked him like why it's been difficult getting the run game going, and did you see what he said about this? What Stenavich said? What he said was
that we're always behind.
He said it's difficult to get the run going when we're down 24-3. And it's like, dude, like, you're not.
If you're down 24-3, you should have had like at least 3. You should have 3 possessions.
But it's not even that. When has that ever happened? When have they ever been down that much besides the Lions game? Like, the Broncos game was like a 1-score game the whole game. The Raiders game was tight the whole game. The Vikings game was like a 1 to 2 score game. Almost the whole game was like every single one of these games has been single digits at half. So I don't know what games he's looking at. But anyway, actually I did find something interesting. They're actually like near the bottom of the league in neutral pass rate, which is really surprising to me. They're like 24th in neutral pass rate around
the Rams
league.
Are.
No, the Packers.
Oh, the Packers are.
Neutral
pass. It's just that they're. So it's instead of saying we're just never in neutral.
That's probably also fair. We're probably not in a lot of neutral. But this was per RBSTM.com. I think they were 24th in neutral pass rate, which is win probabilities between 20 and 80% on early downs. So they're running the ball. They just can't run the ball, I guess, is the problem.
They can't run block. So. Yeah.
It's not that they're abandoning the run, which I thought, because I had a whole thing written up about how I wanted them to run the ball more. But, like, you look at the numbers, and they are trying to run the ball. It's just they just can't. So it's like, it happens. But the Rams' run defense is very poor. So maybe they'll be able to run the ball.
Right.
We've said that a few times.
And they're tackling. I was just looking at this. 5th worst in the league. The Rams tackling. Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
So that's encouraging.
They have a very young defense. And they've gotten, like we talked about, some good contributions from some of these young players, but they're pretty green as well as a team. But yeah, so I don't know. And they haven't exactly played a murderer's row of run defenses and have struggled to run the ball still all season. So it is what it is. But Dad, let's move on.
When we couldn't really run the ball against the Raiders.
Was that when we should have known?
That was pretty discouraging.
We probably should have known.
Or the Broncos couldn't run against.
It's crazy how everything flipped at that Lions game, isn't it? Because coming into that Lions game, I was like, I was like, okay, like you beat the crap out of the Bears. You should have beaten the Falcons. You came back tough against the Saints. We could play the Lions pretty close. Like they lost to the Seahawks with no tackles. They beat a Chiefs team, but like barely without some of their best players. And then you come into that Lions game and you just get your face kicked in. And it has been.
Do we still have hangover from that Lions game?
I don't know, but it's been straight downhill ever since. Really, it's been like straight downhill since the fourth quarter of the Falcons game, for the offense at least. But
we've had one good quarter. One good quarter?
Maybe two. Are you saying just the fourth quarter of the Saints game? I think that, yeah, probably,
yeah.
Right? The third quarter of the Lions game, when it was way out of reach.
We had 2 touchdowns in that one.
Exactly, yeah. So you can say maybe, but that game was pretty much iced, and I was pretty much done. But yeah, I feel like since that Lions game, they've just been lost. They've been so lost. And I remember I was excited coming into that game, but whatever. Let's move on to our next section, though, Dad, which is don't take your eye off that guy, which are players that we think will either be standouts or players that we think their performance will be kind of the turning point in the game. Like if they have a good game, the Packers will win. If they have a bad game, the Packers will lose. I don't mind leading us off here. For me, I had Keyshawn Nixon, slot corner for the Packers, if you didn't know. Cooper Kupp has played 52.5% of his snaps in the slot this season, according to PFF. And since Cooper Kupp's return, Puka Nacua has played 39% of his snaps in the slot per PFF. So their 2 best receivers are taking a lot of snaps in the slot, and that's going to be pretty much Keyshawn's entire assignment. So good luck. You got this guy, my guy. You got this. That's so tough for him though. He's going to be outmatched.
He's like the last starter left healthy among the corners.
Yeah, it's true. But that's such a tough matchup for him, don't you think? Like he'd have to play out of his mind.
Both of them.
Yeah, to have to like essentially switch from guarding one
and
to
I think
the
their style's a little different too. But yeah,
they're kind of similar. But yeah, but I mean Cooper Kupp's better. But I don't know if I'm really blowing anyone's mind saying that one. But yeah, that's such a tough matchup for him, and he's gonna have to. He doesn't need to be perfect. I think just don't get destroyed out there. He's gonna have.
Are they
the
both
toughest
significantly taller than Keyshawn?
Kupp definitely is. Kupp is bigger than you realize. I don't remember.
Kupp is more of a big
size.
slot, actually.
I'll vamp a little. You can say what you're going to say, and
I'll go on to mine.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at one. So I'm picking Elton Jenkins to keep an eye on, especially if he and Donald match up during the game. He just had his best game of the year by far in pass blocking against Minnesota. So he's kind of struggled through the year, and he's had to kind of down by his standards. And we've been thinking you could possibly attribute that to the knee injury he had that he rushed back from the MCL strain. So against Minnesota, his PFF pass blocking grade was 91.2. And his best of the season before that was only 71. So it's a huge improvement. So maybe he's getting healthy, getting his feet under him, ready to play better. And he has completely frustrated Aaron Donald in the past. So I want to keep an eye on that matchup. That could be really interesting, what's going on there.
Yeah, and for reference, I just looked it up. Keyshawn is 5'10", 200, but both Puka and Cooper Kupp are about 6'2", 200. So they both got almost.
I thought they might be about. I thought they both have like 4 inches on them. Yeah. Yeah,
it's a tough assignment, but they're going to need to have him at least hold up, like, and give him help too. Like, I know it's hard to give help in the slot, but it's going to be tough. Anything else you wanted to say about Elton before we move, or Keyshawn before we move on to our overtime, where we just kind of say what else is on our mind for this game?
Not too much. I think it's going to be. Those are the ones I'm going to keep the most eye on, I guess, or maybe. And we'll see who's going to be roaming the middle in terms of like keeping an eye on picking off Rippon, because I think he might. I haven't looked to see like our career interceptions. They mostly over the middle. Where has he actually thrown them? I wish I knew whether it'd be like sort of the middle linebacker should be watching and keep it the safety. Keep an eye on him because he's going to give away where his throw's going to go.
Yeah. But let's move on to our overtime, though, where we kind of just talk about a few things that we haven't gotten a chance to discuss yet. Dad, any last things that you wanted to tack on in this overtime?
Yeah, so this kind of goes into things. So Rams are not all that good in defending wide receiver ones and wide receiver twos. They're 19th in the league in defending. So this is by DVOA on FTN Fantasy, breaking down the pass coverage grades depending on which wide receiver it is. So wide receiver one, they're only 19th in the league in defending them. And wide receiver 2, they're 23rd in the league in defending team's number 2 wide receiver. And then they're only 30th in covering tight ends by DVOA. So maybe the Packers can get Watson and Dobbs and Musgrave all going. And the Rams are also especially poor covering the middle of the field, where they are 24th in the league at defending the middle portion of the field. So maybe we can get some seam routes for Musgrave, go up the middle, or some crossing routes for Dobbs or Watson. I know we have. Is there any chance that?
Can I add something on Musgrave real quick? Don't you feel like his usage has been super weird the last 2 to 3 weeks? I feel like it's just been all quick outs and him just getting slammed in the back, just 2 yards. It's the Robert Tonyan special.
They're throwing it to him like they think he's George Kittle or something. He's going to break 5 tackles on the way downfield, even if his helmet's ripped off.
Yeah, and
that's not his game. His game is,
he should be a field stretcher and a seam threat. But they're just not. I feel like they're never using him there.
They seem to think he's some kind of yak tackle breaking monster, and he's more of a finesse, run downfield at speed and get open.
They hit him once in the middle of the field in that Vikings game for a first down, if I remember correctly. But for all the hype that he had in the offseason, I feel like he's just not getting used that much. His speed is not being capitalized as much as it could be. But at the same time, they tried to in the beginning of the season, and they kept missing it. So
they've been missing him in the middle up the seam. So I'm asking for them to throw to him in a place that they have not been able to complete. But sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures.
Yeah, it couldn't.
And I'd like to see some plays where I'd like to see Watson get a chance for some run after the catch.
They haven't ran
an
end around to him in maybe once this year. Maybe twice. I mean, to be fair, none of their outside runs go anywhere.
Right.
So
they've kind of been failing too.
Yeah, it's hard because it's okay, we'd like to see them use these players this way, and then you look back, and it's okay, when they do that, it's never worked. So I don't know. It's things that should be decent opportunities for their skill sets, and things that we've seen work well in the past. And it's just nothing is good right now.
But the Rams are bad. They're better covering except they're not so good on the left. There's one side there worse than the other. I forget if it was their. It depends. I guess it's who the corner is. I should have looked up. They should be targeting that guy. One side they're worse than the other, and they're not good at covering the middle of the field. So let's throw it to where they're bad. How's that? Let's throw it to where their defenders are bad. Yeah.
The thing that I wanted to
Why am I not in charge? Let's throw it to where their bad defenders are. I got it all figured out.
Honestly, it couldn't be going worse. Why not, For me, the thing that I wanted to add on was Tutu Atwell. I mentioned him very briefly, but I just wanted to tack him on here because he can fly. 4.3940, according to mockdraftable.com. No one on the Packers has that kind of speed in the secondary, except for Jair, who is not playing healthy and clearly can't move as well with a back injury, which is to be expected. It's not his fault.
So our 3 fastest defenders, I think, the secondary
are all hurt. Yes, Savage,
Jair, Stokes, Savage.
Yep,
all the 4-3 guys.
Yeah, and Levitt specifically runs a 4.56. If I have to watch Levitt trying to chase Tutu Atwell down the field, that's going to be a nightmare. Carrington Valentine runs a 4.44 if I remember correctly. Keyshawn, I couldn't find a 44, and then
Rudy Ford is fast.
He's probably not going to play though. Is the issue?
If he doesn't play, that's right. So Ford is probably
Valentine
not
runs a 4.44. Owens, I couldn't find a time for. Actually, no, his was mid to high 4.4s if I remember correctly, and then Nixon I couldn't find a time for. But yeah, so could be bad. That's all I'm going to say. I'm worried about that speed over the top against our safeties, especially when the Packers have been playing a ton of middle field closed, cover 3, and just one guy to cover that much space against a team that's way faster than you just concerns me. But yeah, so that was the thing that I wanted to touch on in this one. But Dad, do you want to move on to the bottom line?
Why don't you go ahead first? I'm just doing a little bit to see if I have any more testing numbers.
Yeah,
that I've looked up in the past. So why don't you go with your bottom line first?
Yes. So bottom line, just kind of simplifying it down to a one take. The Rams win if blank. For me, the Rams win if the Packers keep playing how they have been. And, pretty much I feel like they'd have to do a complete 180 from the way that they've been approaching these games. And they've talked a bit about, changing how they're going to go Wednesday to Saturday. And that's kind of the inverse. And we'll talk about what would have to happen for the Packers to win. But that's mine. If the Packers keep playing like they've played the last 3 games, they're going to lose again this weekend. I feel like it's that simple. Dad, the Rams win if blank.
I think it's just if Stafford plays.
Even if he doesn't.
I think that right. I was just say that maybe that's all they need, but they could still win without him. He's not essential, but I think he would be sufficient for the Rams to win. But they could still win even if he doesn't play. It's not a either or. It's just like, yeah, if Stafford plays, I don't see how the Packers are winning this game the way they've been playing lately. I'm getting a little. I've been picking the Packers every game so far this season.
I know you have, and I don't know why. But if the Packers lose this game on Sunday against the Rams, does everyone still have their job on Monday?
I don't think they'll fire anybody unless they lose out through the Panthers game.
You think they're gonna, everyone involved is gonna make it through? Not even like a coordinator firing or a rearranging of job titles. I mean, I know we've said it every time. It's like, wow, losing to the Raiders would be terrible. Wow, losing to the Broncos would be terrible. But losing to Brett Rippon in Lambeau, that would be pretty freaking bad. Although all of these have been pretty bad, so it's hard to, I don't know. That was just something I wanted to bounce off of you. But Dad,
I would be, let's say I'd be pleasantly surprised if they do it. How's that? I just don't have much confidence that this would be bad enough by their definition to make a big change.
You can tell where our heads are at because we're talking about planning for if/when the Packers lose, what happens Monday. I wouldn't really care. I would not be pleasantly surprised because I don't think it's going to change anything. I don't think there is any one person that you could get rid of that would fix the problems that this team has right now. I think they just kind of need to keep going through it, unfortunately.
What I think would make the biggest improvement to this team in terms of coaching personnel, and we talked about this last podcast.
I don't know what.
Stanovich back in charge of O-line. That's all he does.
They did that last year, and I don't know why they haven't done it this year. I mean, the line has not been as bad as it was at the beginning of last year. It's actually been okay. The line hasn't been good, but I don't think the line is the biggest part of their problems. I don't know.
But there's still mental errors in the line, missed assignments.
Yeah, that's true. But that's every position. So I don't even know if that's a Butkus issue. So I'm not sure. But Dad, let's move on. Let's finish up the bottom line. Packers win if blank. What do you got?
So if they can pressure the Rams into turnovers and not turn it over themselves. So because as I wrote, right now, I don't feel like we can play offense well enough or shut teams down on defense well enough to win a game without some high variance plays going our way.
Yeah. We're gonna
so maybe they need to win the turnover battle or get a blocked. They run that blocked field goal all the way back for a touchdown.
We got a block kick last game.
Yeah, we needed to run it back for a touchdown because we got out of that blocked field goal
2 yards.
Bupkis.
Yeah, nothing. Absolutely.
But I mean,
nothing.
in terms of points.
Yeah, I know. No, I know. I agree. We got a little bit of field position.
So we
change.
need to have we need to have some high variance plays go our way. I feel like that's where I'm at right now with this team.
I agree. They need to have some bounces of the ball. For me,
this game is going to be like, what was it, the Jets-Giants, where there were 24 punts in that game?
Yeah.
Was it something crazy like that?
And the Giants just handed the game away at the end for no reason.
This game could be similarly
terrible.
Aesthetically
Well,
terrible.
We were joking about what's going to be worse, Packers-Rams with Brett Rippon this weekend or Raiders-Jets primetime the next weekend with Aiden O'Connell and Zach Wilson. Amazing. But anyway, for me, I think the Packers win if the in-week changes they made. So they're trying apparently more competitive periods, more individual work with the rookies. If any of that actually makes an impact, I'm not holding my breath, but I think that is maybe an avenue for them to not be playing quite as disconnected as they have the past few weeks. But Dad, let's finish things up here. Score prediction. What do you got?
So this is the first time this year I think I'm not picking the Packers, and I'm picking 13-9 Rams. A truly ugly game where I think it's probably like 3-0 at halftime.
You should have included some weird score, some scoregami with like a safety or two in there, because
that's true. Well, it's a touchdown and a safety for the Packers.
For the Packers. It's not a touchdown and 3 safeties for the Rams. Wasn't what you were thinking for this one?
It's a touchdown, a 2-point conversion, a safety, and a field goal.
Oh man, I got 20 to 13. I got 20 to 13 Rams. I'm just gonna pick against the Packers this week. I don't feel good about it, but
maybe I'll start. Maybe it'll turn out I'll be doing the Packers a favor by not picking them anymore.
The reverse jinx. You never know.
They're like, stop picking us. I'm starting about getting hate mail. It's like, why do you keep picking the Packers?
It's clearly your fault. Yes, it is all on you, 100%. But anyway.
Yep.
Thank you, listeners, so much for listening to this one. Preview for the Packers-Rams game this coming Sunday. Don't forget about daylight savings, or you'll be an hour early. Especially don't want to be an hour early for that Europe game at 6 a.m. Don't want to be waking up at 5 a.m. That sounds kind of miserable. But once again, thank you so much for listening. If you like what you hear here today...
That's 6 a.m. California time.
That's true.
You
that's
listeners
true.
out there.
Yes. But for those of you listening, come give us a follow on Twitter, @FatherSonPacker. Like we said, tweet out stats we find interesting, when we have new podcasts, articles we find interesting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Subscribe to us on your podcast platform of choice, whether that's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. You can even find all our episodes on YouTube. We put them there as well. And if you subscribe to us there, we'd really appreciate it. It would really help our numbers. Thanks again for listening. We'll be doing a post game after this game on hopefully after a win. Fingers crossed. We'll be doing 2 episodes a week for the rest of the year, and then an episode a week during the off season. We hope you come back. Hope you keep listening. And until next time, go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.